Hello! In today's tutorial, we will learn about fetching data using Axios and ReactJS. To fetch data from an endpoint using Axios in a ReactJS component, you can follow these steps. Start by installing and importing Axios in your React component. Next, we need to declare a state variable to store the data fetched from the API endpoint. In order to fetch the data when opening the page, we should use the useEffect hook to fetch data from the API endpoint. Inside the useEffect hook, we should use Axios to make an HTTP GET request to the API endpoint. In the above code, we're fetching data from the URL endpoint using Axios. When the data is returned successfully, we set the state variable data to the fetched data. Once the data is fetched and stored in the state variable, we can display it in your component. In the code, we're using the map function to loop through the data array and display the name and email of each user fetched from the API endpoint. We can check the network tab from the inspect element, and we can see that the request was sent and its response was successful, and we can see the data that was returned. Now let's add some basic CSS style. Let's display the elements in a grid of cards. In the above CSS code, we are creating a grid layout using the grid template columns property to specify 3 columns with equal width. We're also setting a gap between the grid items using the grid gap property. We're then styling the individual grid items using the grid item selector. We're setting a white background color, a border, some padding, and a box shadow to give the items some depth. We're also styling the H2 and P elements inside the grid items with specific font sizes and margins to make them more readable. To apply this style to your React component, you can add a class name to the container element that holds the grid items. Check the link in description to find more resources for learning ReactJS. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button if you like my content.